Live from Cultura Media House. Brought to you by 786 Sports. It's a Big League Show. With Adrian Lorenzo. And now batting, here's Danny Enriquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to El Big League Show. My name is Danny Enriquez. Getting close to the fourth quarter here. I'm here with the man himself, two-time World Series champion, former MLB exec, proud Belen Jesuit grad, Adrian Lorenzo. Adrian, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking baseball again, especially after the deadline. So
yeah, we kind of got a picture of what we're dealing with, right?
For sure.
So no more
Clear
speculation.
Picture of the second half, I think. So
a lot of guys emerging, some familiar faces kind of finding their form, some people maybe we forgot about finding their form, and then some that are really just blowing up and doing their thing. But let's start with a superstar player, right? Who, when you really look, we're so used to the slow starts with him, right? Where you kind of forget about it for half the season, and then by the end of the year, you look at it and you go, okay, this guy's one of the best players in baseball. But it has been cranking up since July 11th. So basically the last month, third in the major leagues in WAR, tied for first in home runs with 12, and that is Julio Rodríguez, Seattle Mariners center fielder, my son's favorite baseball player, one of the faces of the game. And this is somebody that you are very familiar with, not just watching him in the major leagues, but watching him at a very early stage of his development.
yeah, probably one of my favorite players in totality, based on my personal experience in scouting the player early on and just closely following his journey, because it's one of those, like, scouts don't just remember the players they get. They feel like they remember most the players that you came short on, that you were in on and you liked and you had interest in. And for a myriad of reasons, you don't end up with the player. And then to see it all the way through now at 24 years old, he's one of the faces of the game, definitely the face of his franchise. A storied franchise with some pretty generational players throughout. Ichiro just got inducted. Ken Griffey Jr. is always worth mentioning. And so for him to be the current face of Seattle baseball and really one of the faces of baseball overall, it's fulfilling to have watched this basically from before the start to where it is now. And I think you see it right here in the Baseball Savant page with our new setup today, where Danny and I could basically look at the same screen and talk about the same things. But here, value coming from everywhere, really. Starts with some elite physicality, right? 6'3", 228, chiseled, physical, pretty big for a center fielder. So but the way he backs this up, this physicality, is a sprint speed in the 93rd percentile. So he carries a 70 run grade tool, at least a plus runner at 6'3", 228. So there's a lot that he does physically, and with the speed component that allows a big man to play center field the way he does. So he has the physical tools there, and then he backs it up with some 96 in range total. So he's making something out of that foot speed. Some guys are fast and their range is limited, or their out conversion, because they don't take correct first steps. There are things you got to do to be able to play center field in your first step in your pre-pitch setup, beyond just being the fastest guy to get to the ball and make the catch. You could do a lot in your pre-pitch and have good instincts and make good reads. You and I talked about Jackie Bradley Jr. a lot. I remember watching Jackie be a plus center fielder without being a plus runner, because he had those initial reads. I think Julio blends like high-level instincts with high-level tools and physicality. And he's got bat speed in the 95th percentile. So he's got a lot going for him, and he's just electric to watch. He contributes on both sides of the ball, clearly, but also he has that X factor that certain guys have it. Ellie De La Cruz has it. Fernando Tatis has it. Bobby Witt has it. They're guys that have this magnetism to them. And I think Julio's got that a lot. And Julio he's very presentable, speaks really good English already, so he can kind of cross culture really quickly, which some of those other guys may not have that capability. And it's not a knock on them. It's just he learned English really fast. And I actually think that's part of his development happening so early. Why? At 24 years old, we're talking about a guy with 3-4 years in the league and signed an extension already at 24. So that means that he did a lot of things early in his trajectory, in his early years, which we're about to get into, that would set him up for this success here now. But it's cool, man. It's cool to watch Latin American baseball players become the face of baseball. Like he's from this place called Loma de Cabrera. It's on like the Haitian Dominican border. You gotta you go into Santiago and then you gotta go 2 hours in to go get to his little town. And so him putting his town on the map, although Rafael Furcal did that first. Rafael Furcal was also from Loma de Cabrera, but it's cool. It's just the stories that you root for, and to have been a part of it in some way, that was also cool.
Yes, we'll take it back. Obviously, commercials. He's making money off speaking English too. Yep. So there's an actual monetary value to all that work that he did. But we're going back here to the beginning as I pull up scouting report here. March 16th, 2016. So we're talking about almost 10 years ago as we walk through it, and familiar handwriting on there. So obviously you were there on this day. Take me through the day. Take me through some of these notes and just, tell me when I'm going to turn the page. So, but yeah, let me know what you're seeing on here.
So I thought this was cool to bring up on this episode because of this in specific. This isn't a scouting report. I would later fulfill scouting reports. This is basically the roster that you show up to a tryout with, that a Latin American scout shows up to a tryout with. Your area scout sets you up. You as a cross-checker or supervisor, you're coming in to see the players that the area scout shows to you. Here we were in Santiago, which is the northern part of the Dominican Republic, and this individual scout is organizing tryouts that the cross-checkers that have flown in from the U.S. come into. They set the tryouts up so you can cross-check and see a smaller pool of players instead of just seeing open players. So this was the kind of the best of the region for this program. And this is kind of the first stops that kids are seen in, either this or a showcase setting. This was at a private field. And here he is, Julio Rodríguez, March 16, 2016, in Santiago, Dominican Republic. Julio Rodríguez, December 29, 2000, Loma de Cabrera, 6'2", 180. He was not that at that time. He was probably 6'2", 165.
So he's 15 years old?
Yeah, he's 15 years old at this point. And I'm looking at my grades now. It's interesting because you're watching 15-year-old kids, so you're not going to give them major league tools. So all your tool grades are pretty low, actually. So I have here 30 future, 45 arm strength. I was really light on the total arm strength. He didn't really throw well that day, So 30 future, 45 arm. But then the notes that I did have, I feel things in shorthand, because you're making a lot of different quick notes, and this is where you could probably turn the page to this one. But body stands out right away. So a projectable body. AX, which means actions looked right. You and I talk about this a lot. It either looks right or it doesn't. Some guys, I like to make a comment on, okay, does this look like a baseball player? Does this look correct or not? So the fact that he has that right away stands out quite a bit. Loose swing, compact, impacts the baseball with bat speed. That's borne out. His bat speed is in the 95th percentile. He's projected that out. I remember writing, I like the face, which is interesting. That to me is like an old scouting adage. Like I think a lot of older school scouts talk about, it's part of looking at him and does he look right or not? There's something in the face is part of the overall presentation of the player. So it was a comment on it, not a okay, good face, therefore good player.
Well, let's stop there because I want to talk about this, because this is something in the Moneyball movie they kind of make a joke about, right? The whole the face,
Fabio, the jeans,
right? So they made fun of it, but in this case, like you said, he is the face of baseball. His face is on a lot of stuff, and obviously the player caught up to it. Is this something where you think there's still value in something that I know obviously this is a small part, but it was important enough for you to at least write it down?
Yeah.
So for someone who's watching this from more of an analytical standpoint, numbers guy, is probably laughing it's so old school. This is this part of Moneyball where they're saying, look how stupid these old scouts are.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a very accurate report, or at least accurate set of notes. Why do you think this was important enough to write down?
People I feel like I learned how to scout from and evaluate with, a gentleman by the name of Todd Klaus in particular, Rolando Pino, Junior Vizcaíno is a longtime scout and scouting director. What they talk about a lot is trusting your instincts in this world of analytics, just already providing a lot of the analytically driven decision or portion of the pie. Okay, it takes you to a percentage. I don't know what that percentage is, but I know there is value in a subjective element to this. Follow your instincts, what stands out to you. Or Junior Vizcaíno would always tell me, hey, just watch what he does the whole game, the whole day. Watch everything he does. Watch like the body language, the in-between pitches, how he runs out to the dugout, how he runs back, and not the Johnny Hustle bullshit stuff. They're like, does he lock in, first of all? Does he pitch to pitch? Is he locked in? Okay, that's a good start. On deck circle, is he timing up the pitcher? Like, these are all things that have happened outside the scope of actual throw the ball, evaluate the tool, run the first, get the time to first. Like, these are more subtle skills and more subtle indicators, I think. And if you believe in that, I think a lot of scouts do believe in that. Like, if you ask scouts that have been scouting a long time, what do they trust the most? Probably their instincts and things that you can see arm strength, you can see speed, you can time it, but there are things that happen there and that are involved that you're being asked to make reads on what this kid will do, what this player will do. But that's not only physically dependent. That's mentally dependent. That's emotionally dependent. That's if you can't focus pitch to pitch in Major League Baseball, you're not going to be there very long. A lot of kids can't focus. A lot of players can't maintain focus pitch to pitch, especially in the outfield where it kind of gets boring and you just you'd be surprised at how many players are not able to focus and lock in. So to the point of the subjective factors, there's something about this kid, Julio, in that moment. I was like, there's something about him. And isn't that true now?
Of course.
Like, doesn't he have that like appeal that
he's the face of the sport? Like you said, one of the faces of the sport.
He's one of the faces of the sport. And it's really more a comment on there's something about this kid, something magnetic about this kid. And my other notes are hitterish with extra large hands, which is a big one. Like, the extra large hands is I would always try to gauge this via the handshake. It's really the only way to do it. You shake the player's hand and you get a read on hand size and strength. And if the guy gives you a dead fish handshake or a real firm handshake and stares you in the eye, again, these softer touches to me are available for more veteran seasoned scouts that I wasn't at the time. This was my early scouting, but the people I was learning from were more seasoned, were more veteran and taught to like use this in the evaluation too. So at extra large hands, which to me is a good projection.
Let's stop on the hands because from the football and basketball, right? I know hand size plays a part there, particularly football. If you talk about catching or throwing positions. And they're not all the same. Sometimes it's like, like you think back to like a Johnny Unitas or Drew Brees, the long fingers, and they have a tighter spiral. They follow through differently. And just kind of the big kind of mechanic hands. For a baseball standpoint, what are you looking for? And then what part of the game does it translate to?
All of it. In baseball, every move is with your hands. Every movement, you name it. You need hand strength, like, period. It could come in different shapes. I remember Dustin Pedroia didn't have very big hands, but when he shook his hand, you're like, it's a wiry, tight, like, strong handshake. And I think baseball players, that's where the major league stuff helps. Being around major leaguers, knowing how strong they are. Okay, I know this kid got to get to being that strong. So if he shows early indicators like strong hands and hand size, to me it's a bit of an amateurish way to project body size. Like, if he's got big hands and he never grows, he's just a small guy with big hands. No, probably he's gonna grow. It's like a puppy with big paws or whatever. There's something to that, I think, in my opinion. But to me, what I get out of that is like this young man leaves an impression on you when, and there's some strength and there's some presence and there's something to him. And then the most important thing I think it says here is hitterish, Hish, which to me it's also kind of binary. Does he look hitterish or not? You and I talk about this. Does he do hitterish things? Does he have hitterish features? And sometimes that's really subjective too, because there are guys that don't have a pretty swing and are very hitterish. And to me, hitterish is like in its totality. Does he look like a hitter in the box? Does he? And this guy did. And then the funny thing is loves Red Sox at the end, because I was working for the Red Sox at that point in time. And it's not that the group didn't like him at all. There's a reason that they don't sign him. There's just a myriad of reasons. We would sign 3 other players that we also loved in that same class. Wander Franco was in the same class. Ronnie Mauricio was in the same class. Really good class overall. So Julio Rodríguez would sign later in the period relative to some of these other guys that would come off the board earlier. But I remember I wrote Loves Red Sox because I got so excited. I was like, okay, and because the Red Sox carry a lot of cachet and capital in the Dominican Republic. Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, Pedro Martinez. Like, if the Dominican has a team, it's probably the Red Sox. And so you kind of felt like, okay, we have a good chance. And for one reason or another, it doesn't happen that way. But the note was like, okay, there's might be some reciprocal interest here as well. But Julio was, I tell this to people who scout now. If a player can do something once, that means it's in there.
Yeah.
Right? So
Great the
now,
flashes.
Julio did something where he hit, I'll never forget it. It was like a backspun line drive over the shortstop that like wasn't on the track man, but it was like a man hitting like a man's line drive. And you're like, okay, that's in there. Backspun, perfectly hit up the middle, like right over the shortstop's head, pull side. And you're like, you know, and it got into like, you know, one hop off the wall, kind of really cleanly backspun. So it turns the light bulb on. Okay, that's in there. And that's where I think scouts sometimes are trying to figure out what they don't like about the player. I wanted to always lean on the side of like, all right, what's in there? What can he do? And then it's a matter of rest of development to bring that out at a higher frequency, at a higher clip. Because if it's in there, that means it's repeating that again. And what he did in that moment, I thought was a very big league motion. It's like, okay, that projects well. If all of a sudden he's now 6'2", 6'3", 220 like he is now, those are homers in Seattle, which is not an easy place to hit homers in. But I remember that moment specifically and thinking like, okay, the concept of if it's in there, it's a repetition thing. Problem is a lot of guys show you things that never realize the things that they did. There's a lot of guys on this list, for example. Anthony Garcia is earlier on this tryout sheet. He would go on to sign for a lot of money with the Yankees. 6'4", big, physical. The body was good. And he would flash things, but he would never realize that flash. I think the two differences there, there's a different person in those bodies, right? Like, not to knock Anthony Garcia here, but I think to me, Julio was different in terms of focus, and which I wouldn't have been able to suss out in this tryout.
Right.
This is just my first look at the player. Like, oh shit, show up. You really like this. Whatever's happening here, I like this a lot.
Which I was going to ask you about, because you mentioned he's not even 180 at this time. Obviously, now he's in the 220s.
Yep.
The commitment off the field to nutrition, to weight room, all that kind of stuff. You're so far away from that when you're dealing with a 15-year-old Dominican. Like, how do you like seize on, because it's such a big difference maker, right? In terms of the guys who really work on their body, the guys who really get stronger. I mean, we've seen it changes careers, but
drastically.
How can you even get any kind of sense of that for you, who being an international scout? You don't have, you know, these big high schools where you can ask the trainer and stuff. That, like, how do you evaluate that as an international scout? Try to get at least some kind of feel for how this guy is going to work and take care of his body in a major league system.
The true answer is that you don't know. Like, and I think a lot of scouts, you make educated estimations or guesses based on what you think, how hard you think that player is going to work, based on who his parents are, how much did you get to know him. Sometimes you don't get the access to the player that's to be able to suss this whole thing out. You just have to make projections based on the information that you do have and the process that you did apply to it. If you were able to have lunch with him, if you were able to have more than just watch him in a showcase, then you have to be really targeted and efficient on what questions you ask him. But then I've gone through a few organizations and nobody has figured makeup out. I don't think we have makeup assessments figured out at all. It's so subjective. And every kid's individual situation is so different than the next one. It can be a kid from Mississippi here in the United States and a kid from Miami are two completely different kids. So imagine a kid from the Dominican and a kid from Maracaibo, Venezuela. The contexts are completely different. So the same scale can't be applied to such different circumstances. And so makeup assessments, I think they boil down to a couple things. Is like, does he compete? And that shows up.
Yep.
That really shows up. I think pitchers have the most ability to show, do you compete or not? In the box, you can show if you compete. So there's some things that you can see subjectively that you're, okay, does he compete? That's a big one for me. Will he work? And can he focus? Compete and focus kind of lock in together because you need it. But will he work? That's a guess. Good kid doesn't always equal hard worker. And that's a tough one too. I've fallen a lot for good kid, great kid. And great, but that doesn't equal, like, great players. There's an edge that needs to come somewhere. Not every player in the major league that's great is not great dude, but is not like overly nice and like cares about the niceties. There's some edge that you need to play this game, and to get strong to play this game. You also need that edge, the weight room and things like that. That good kid doesn't just like equal good player all the time. It's just a reality. Good kid, though, does encompass, does he care about this enough to like keep this the main thing?
Yeah.
So on that side, it does apply. But Boy Scouts don't make the best like baseball players at the end of the day. I think any baseball player will tell you that. Anybody in high level competitive sports, no, you got to, at a certain point, you got to be a bit of a killer and bring it. If not, you're not going to last very long. And so those are things that it's very hard to say with conviction things. There are a lot of players that I've made an estimation on that turned out to be wrong, just flat wrong. And you felt conviction in that decision or in that take at the time where you're just wrong, but you didn't know all the intricacies of that young man, that individual, and what exterior factors, what his family health situation is like, what his, how he handles the girls in his life, that kind of thing. Like that can be problematic or a thing to navigate, how he handles his finances off the field, how big is his circle off the field, who's in his ear, what agent do you select? Does that agent support and like kind of help you make decisions that move the ball forward? These are all like, that's all part of makeup.
Do you have sources in the town? Because I mean, we're here with Sean B. He knows everybody in South Florida and their families and everything else. Like, are there versions of that in these Dominican cities where it's like, hey, I talked to this guy, he's going to know what this guy does off the field, where he comes from?
Good scouts have that, and good scouts know that. But at the same time, like there's a degree to which the people that know the player and want good for him are only going to tell you good things about the player. Yeah. Right? They're only going to paint a certain picture. So you have to take that with a grain of salt too. So you have to trust your own assessment. And that's where the area scout, to me, the area scout, the ground level scout is the one in the best position to make reads on the player if he's doing his job, if he's paying attention. And the best area scouts like know about these players. Like Ralph Reyes always stands out. He's a very famous scout here in Miami. I think he's head of the Miami Scouting Mafia, I think. Shout out Ralph Reyes. But you talk to him about players, he knows the family, he knows the brother, the sister, the story of like this that connects to that and why this may have happened or why, yeah, the tools are great, but I don't know if he's got it here between the years because of X, Y, Z. Like the good scouts know those things, but that's hard to do. Comes with a lot of experience and a lot of time. So I have such a deep respect for scouting, really mostly because I got so many of them wrong. I don't want this to be like, Julio Rodríguez. Yeah, we're cherry picking one that went the right way, but in a lot of these cases, Ronnie Rojas is in this, Anthony, all of those have positive comments too. Like the body, hitterish hands, those guys didn't make it out of AA. Didn't make it out of high A ball. But this guy's kind of stacked in you watch 8 players that day, 9 players that day. He throws 3 balls from the outfield. He takes 2 rounds of 8 swings in BP. And the scout needs to be like, okay, right in the system that Dave Dombrowski or all this GM is going to read what you think about this player based on this very limited snapshot. So you're going to be wrong a lot too. That's why it's kind of fun. That's why I like it.
Last thing on Julio, and now going to the current major league player. 6 right now in position player war. You're talking about Aaron Judge, Pete Crow Armstrong, Cal Raleigh, Ohtani, Ramirez, right? So the absolute elite players in the world are the only people ahead of him in terms of position player war. And I think that matches the eye test and what he does.
For sure.
Speed, the defense.
And his team's in it because of him. In large part because of him, not only because of him.
Packed house. I mean, it's like it's a vibe out there.
That place gets electric when they're good.
Oh, and with him, you could tell he had a couple home runs 2 days ago, and it was just a different atmosphere. Now, the defense and the speed, is going to be consistent. The hitting has been, I would say, up and down because obviously he's been effective, but it's not like he has been the most consistent offensive player. There's been very pronounced streaks to his game. Is there a level beyond the elite level he's at now that he can get to where you're talking about like, some of the great center fielders and still get to some more? Or do you think this great player that we see right now is kind of the top of the ceiling?
I think if you ask Julio himself, he'd say that there's way more layers and levels left. First, because he's 24 years old. With what I'm seeing here is like tools, right? Like, so he would have to deteriorate significantly, and even a 20% reduction in his physical tools would still net out a pretty good offensive player. And then I think there's a wisdom to getting older. As the downside is your body deteriorates, but the upside is that you get wiser. You make better swing decisions, right? Like Julio, where's the weaknesses here? High whiff rate, high chase rate, semi-high K rate. He keeps it in check. But Julio would always argue that he could get on base more. And him getting on base more, he can steal bases, he can do different things. You and I have talked ad nauseum about swing decisions. So, and as you get wiser and more developed as a hitter, you make better swing decisions if you're making adjustments and if you're paying attention, which I think he will. So I think that there's huge ceiling here with Julio Rodríguez. I think that he's one of those rare players you can't really put a ceiling on because there's raw power, there's raw speed and explosiveness, premium athlete. Even if he moves to a corner outfield, he'd probably be pretty good defensively in a corner as well, or even just as an offensive DH. Like this to me has staying power for a little while here. And I think, I don't throw names like Manny Ramirez around lightly at all. And there's slightly different positions at this point in time, but like there are hit tool similarities here. I think Manny was in his own stratosphere when he was good, but Manny also showed some really explosive, flashy tools when he was these ages. And I think that I had to pick a right Dominican outfielder to ID here. I think Julio Rodríguez, there's significant upside remaining here.
Starling Marte, maybe more offense.
A little more, yeah. That'd be great. I love Starling Marte.
Yeah, just the body and kind of being,
that's not a bad one. That's not a bad one.
Baseball needs more players like this.
Can I answer your question about
please.
like the up and down? I think the more human nature thing is that you wouldn't only just go up all the time. Like we're going to talk about Bo Bichette later. Like there's peaks to this. There's valleys to this. There's like neutrality to this. There's a baseline that you set. There's expectations when you show up and are one of the best in the game that you're just going to be that every year. Baseball's fucking hard, man. Like to be a top 10 player in the world in a comprehensive stat like WAR, like he is right now, you know how good you have to be, how consistent you have to be performance-wise. You have to post every day. I thought he made a really interesting decision to not play in the All-Star game, to get the acknowledgement and decide like, no, I'm going to prioritize the second half of the season. Because you and I talk about the second half. Like the All-Star game is just the half.
Yeah.
Like you got the dog days of this thing coming. Like the hardest part of this whole thing, this whole journey is coming up now. So it's not the fans' favorite decision for him not to participate. But like if this really is a higher level chess move on his part that he just wants to be healthy for the second half, which maybe it is, there's other valuable things going on that help me project well on will he get better? I think he's very good. He has raw physical tools, and he seems like a very sharp young man, competitive young man. So, and he's only 24. So what's stopping him from having more ceiling? To me, consistency, swing decisions, make better swing decisions, produce better overall. And I think that's where he can make some real strides because the raw tools are there. And even if they tick a little bit, raw tools tick down a little bit, but your swing decisions tick up, you can find a home in baseball for a long, long time. And he's got a nice big contract for a long time, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But I think there's more levels to this for sure.
And I hope we see him here in the WBC too when we get to spring. I mean, I think back to last time, he had one of the best catches I've ever seen live in center field.
He's electric, man.
And sacrificing his body. Like I said, he's my son's favorite player. He checks his box score every single day.
Yep.
Like every hour of the day. He's asking my wife, give me the phone. Let me see the box score.
He's in Seattle and your son's in Miami.
Right.
So think about that. That to me is powerful.
It's like Mickey Mantle back in the day, checking the newspaper, guys like that. There's not that many of them in this sport.
There really are.
So, shout out to Julio Rodríguez. Love the face, and that's a fun player to monitor here as he gets ready to maybe make a run at a World Series and go to a whole new stratosphere, right? I mean, we haven't even talked about postseason kind of moments, which with the way Seattle is positioned.
Yeah, they got a good squad.
And with the
they can
rotation,
pitch with anybody.
Oh, my goodness.
You really got to hit in this second half, though. You got to pitch, and you got to survive. You got to pitching-wise, you just got to make it. But hitting-wise, you got to bang to score enough runs for every pitcher being tired. You have to, if you can go on an offensive run as a team now is the time. And
you load up, you get Naylor, you got Rowell. I mean, what he's doing is insane at the catcher position. Eugenio Suarez. I mean, they're loaded up. Rosarena, talk about a postseason performer. So that's a team. It's going to be fun to watch here.
Can I cap something off with Julio here?
Please,
because
cap it.
We did the work. I love collecting these Baseball America handbooks because they show a progression. And I'm going to read off names. So like Kyle Lewis, Evan White, Sam Carlson. Let's see here. Justice Sheffield, Jared Kelenic, Evan White. All those guys are names that were ranked ahead of Julio Rodríguez in terms of prospect value. And that's not to knock Baseball America and where they had him. That was the right read. But my point is these things aren't always obvious when they're happening. There's a progression. There's ups, downs. You know, he's not on the prospect list at all before he is at number 4, before he's a number 1 prospect in baseball. And I think it's important to remember that these things don't have to be linear on the way up the whole time. And, you know, last year was maybe a down year for Julio, but now he's back to that category of being a good, like, best player in the game.
Well, from one number 1 prospect in baseball to another, which is Roman Anthony. And talk about not being linear. I mean, this has been a progression for him. You look at the Baseball Savant page, which I'll pull up here in a second. I mean, it is just absolutely outstanding what he's doing. Not just the raw numbers, but you always talk about swing decisions. You're talking about elite chase percentage, walk percentage. He is swinging and missing, but impacting the ball at an elite level. And of course, just the basic stats. He is crushing it. So this one was interesting to me. Local player, Stoneman Douglas High School. Obviously, we very familiar with the school, the area, big left-hander, 6'3", 200 pounds. I went back and I looked at his scouting report from Baseball America when he was a high school player, because he was drafted, I mean, not late, but you're talking about number 79 overall pick coming out of high school, high-profile high school that produced a ton of major leaguers. Number 72 prospect, according to Baseball America. So it wasn't really a signability thing. That was where he was rated. And when you read the scouting report, you say 6'3", 190, which is about what he is now, wide shoulders, present strength. So the physical stuff all matched up, left-handed, 400-plus foot home runs. They said raw power is easily plus. But then struggled with swing and miss issues over the showcase circuit, which raised questions about his pure hitting ability. But then this is what I thought was interesting. He made more contact this spring as a 3-hole hitter for one of the best high school teams in the country, which is Douglas, and led all hitters with 7 hits at USA Baseball's National High School Invitational. So you have a guy that hit in the games that counted, showcase, struggled. That I'm guessing that is why he dropped to where he dropped. And he's still a high pick, but not where you would pick a player of this caliber, knowing what you know now. I know you're not an amateur scout, domestic amateur scout by trade, or at least that wasn't your experience level down the road, more international. But like the showcase versus the in-game performance and at a high level high school, like how do you balance all that with a player like this who clearly had physical tools?
I think with this player, you get a lot of looks at him, right? Like if he's in the Team USA category, that means he's a pretty popular guy, right? So and at Stoneman Douglas, it's not Anthony Rizzo comes out of there. Like there are guys like Luzardo. Like there are guys that come out of this program, so it's not an unknown program. It's the South Florida area, and actually, I happen to know the scout. Actually, we have another guest in the room, Robbie Perez, who introduced me to a guy by the name of Willie Romay, who was listed as the signing scout for Roman Anthony. He was covering the South Florida area for the Boston Red Sox when he was drafted, and so in 2022. And so I didn't ever see him as a high school player, but if you just read me those things, like Stoneman Douglas, Team USA is a big one. I think Team USA is to get selected for that, I feel like it's not as political as some other organizations. I think the best players end up playing on those teams. They chase the best total player. So if he's on the Team USA selection, I think he's already identified as a pretty good player. But showcase ball is... What do you get out of a showcase? A one snapshot? What if the kid had didn't eat right breakfast, didn't eat right dinner, broke up with his girlfriend the night before, like whatever. One day snapshots are not a good sturdy base of evaluation, but you got to do it. So you got to watch him do it, because sometimes depending on who the agent is, you might not get a lot of like total access to the player in terms of what you see. Or if his high school doesn't take BP before games and doesn't take a good infield outfield, you don't really get to see it when you go see him. So showcases do give you 60 times, which you don't otherwise get. There are things to draw and deduce from, but swing and miss, that's an interesting one. Swing and miss comes up a lot. But what kind of swing and miss is it? Is it chase miss? Chase miss is alarming. He's not a chaser. No. He hasn't been a chaser. One of the top walk percentages as a 21-year-old rookie, and he's had that moniker all throughout his minor league performance. So this feels like a elite swing decision maker that maybe was dealing with miss in zone. So whenever you hear miss swing and miss, okay, is it happening in zone or out zone? If it's happening out of zone, that means he's making bad decisions, chasing pitches out of the zone. So I'd be curious as to that. I'm guessing what Willie Romay, the scout, would say is like, okay, yeah, there may be some miss in zone, but he doesn't chase, so he walks and he gets on base. And so now you increase your contact percentages just a little bit, and you make good swing decisions, and you have power with a good left-handed swing, So this to me is a tremendous selection by the Boston Red Sox in I think the Comp B round, number 79 overall in 2022, because high school kids they're risky to bet on. There are other guys that they've betted on. Blaze Alexander was a higher rated prospect coming in. Not Blaze Alexander, Blaze Jordan for them. Light tower power, huge showcase player.
Yeah.
The showcase player.
Twitter clip legend.
Right. Rightfully earned and rightfully gained. But that's not the whole picture. There are some more softer features. And to me, with Roman Anthony, really good elite swing decision maker. Therefore, okay, maybe he's missing at a lot of fastballs, but if he picks the fastballs that he wants to drive and he stays in those in in advantage counts, and he could cover the whole field. Like now it's like matching planes. Contact frequency goes up. You're already getting on base at a high clip. You're already not going to chase the slider down and away or the changeup that bottoms out of the zone. You don't chase those two things. Now you start to box the pitcher in and box him in and box him in. And you don't have to swing at anything that's not in your zone until 2 strikes, really. And if you could stay disciplined, the guys with high walk rates find this out. And that's why I think swing decisions are so crucial, because you can take, if you're in a 2-0 count, you can take a painted fastball down in a way that you know is a strike, but that's not the pitch you drive in a 2-0 count. That's not the pick you would pitch. That's not the pitch you would pick to drive. So therefore, in a 2-1, 2-0 count, you're like, all right, I want a fastball in my happy zone. 3-0, I definitely want a fastball in my happy zone. And if I get it, I'm ready for it. And if I don't get it, strike 1, no big deal. Got 2 more. 2 strikes, it's a battle either way. So that's where 2 strikes is where to me, the Wade Boggs, the Tony Gwynn, the hit tool comes out with 2 strikes especially. Because it's like, okay, don't make an out, put the ball in play. But before 2 strikes, you're in damage territory. You're trying to do damage. And the better swing decision you make on that pitch to do damage with, the swing decision, how much it weighs or how much it gets valued goes up. And I think this to me is the clearest example of this, what we talk about, swing decisions, transitioning immediately into the big leagues. This plays in the big leagues. It's not like, I don't know. It's not like guys that come in with a high miss rate, but they don't walk very much. So they're chasers. That doesn't show up to the big leagues and ball out. Except for Agustin Ramirez, somehow fights this. But
we doesn't whiff. He can put the bat on the
ball.
There
you go. So now we're having a contact.
Yeah.
Now he's a elite contact skills.
Yeah.
But sometimes elite contact can make you think you can hit the ball up and away and you swing at it. Okay, you hit it. But is that the pitch you want to drive in a 2-1 count? 3-1 count? Probably not.
So we're going to get into the contract, because there's a lot of stuff with the contract that I want to get into. But before we just move off the player, we talked about swing decisions.
Yep.
You've seen the guy now in the majors. You've seen what he looks like. You've seen how the physicality translates. We just talked about swing decisions. How do you value a player like this? What do you see with him as far as you've got a little bit of a sample size. Now you've got the eyeballs on him. What can he be for the Red Sox?
Bryce Harper. That's what it feels like to me. A version of Bryce Harper. Elite swing decisions, high on base, athletic outfielder, left-handed swing. Sweet left-handed swing, man. If there's something I could say, this is, as a scout, you look at this swing and you're like, yeah, I like it just looks loose, explosive. This is a new feature for us. We're going to start doing videos more. But, it's just a sweet left-handed swing. It looks super hitterish.
Center field off a lefty.
It's makes a really hitterish move right before the pitch comes in. So if you see it here, it's a bit of a, Christian Yelich used to do this a lot, a bit of a crouch, a crouch into your gather that I think is, you can take that the wrong way. You can move your head a lot in your gather, and that's not good. But there are guys that I think he just makes good decisions. Therefore, he sees the ball out of hand early. A lot of good things are happening with him visually and approach-wise. And he's just got, to me, he's got one of those, not Cano type swings, but swings that are just very appealing to watch from the left side. I don't know what it is about lefties that they have sexier swings than righties. I don't know what that is, but it's true. And he's got one of those. So, and he's a physical dude, man. This is a well put together young man at 21 years old. And so I can't, this to me has face of franchise type of upside. And I think he arguably is that right now with the Boston Red Sox. Boston Red Sox, We thought they'd be pivoting in another direction here with the exit of Rafael Devers, but then maybe it looks a little smarter knowing you had Roman Anthony and knowing Christian Campbell's making a comeback now too. Like those guys are stacked. They have a lot of really good players. Crochet pitching his ass off. Like
Rafaela.
They're in it. Rafaela going off, playing second base now all of a sudden because that's the need for the team. How about that? Like, you prepare all season to play center field, and then midway through you're like, hey, we need second base right now because Trevor Story's really good at short. And he just steps in, and he's already made a bunch of game-saving, kind of game-altering catches at second base.
Mookie Betts, another one of your favorite players.
It's the manager's best friend and a sign of athleticism. But this plays for a long time, what Roman Anthony does. It might even be more like longer range, might even be more like David Ortiz than Bryce Harper necessarily, right? Like this matures. You make good swing decisions with power and a good left-handed swing. Raul Ibanez made a living for 19 years, 20 years off of this. David Ortiz, like you can sit in that role. Got to make good decisions though.
So let's talk about the contract. We're talking about being there for a long time, face of the franchise, all that. So this is an interesting contract for a couple of reasons. Just the numbers, $130 million, 8 years. Obviously, he just came up. So this is something as a trend we're seeing. We just saw Christian Campbell. He had a little bit up and down start. Now started to come back. But you're tying your core in.
That was
early.
A different contract than this one.
Yeah,
like in terms of like they're signing him to this contract because they think he's a cornerstone player, like one of the top players in all of baseball for them. I think Christian Campbell was this guy's a really good player. Can we get him to an extension that's more friendly to the team?
Like Rafaela kind of?
It feels a little more in that category. So just categorically different in terms of that. But it's kind of what you would hope your front office would do with your young players. Now, these can backfire on the long end, but you're seeing a trend. I think Corbin Carroll was really the start. My brother would be laughing, Alex, because he's been out in front of this for a long time. And there was a long time where I was, in terms of, he thought younger players were going to start getting extended more.
The Braves in your division.
And I was more jaded. Yeah, like the Braves with Acuna. But those didn't get received well by agents, for example, right? So I thought you'd see a lessening of those things. But to his credit, he was right. There's been a swath of young players, 0+ service time, 1+ service time. Julio Rodríguez, who we just talked about, signed a very early extension when he showed some flashes. So it's hard to do. Like you have to structure a deal, and you have to, like, agents are good, right? Like it's 8 years for $130 million for Roman Anthony with the upside of $230 million. So there are escalators, which I haven't looked into the details of how he gets into
that
it.
in a second because they're kind of bizarre.
A $5 million signing bonus is also significant for a young man who, as the number 79 overall pick, wasn't going to get a huge bonus, right? So, and that was a long time ago in 2022 already. Now as a zero, until you enter arbitration after your 4th year of major league service, like you're not making real significant amounts. So some upfront money makes a lot of sense too. A $5 million signing bonus all of a sudden can impact your life in all these ways. But this also has to be friendly for the team in a lot of ways. And that's where I think you get into the age-old argument. There's some agents and some philosophies that don't believe in early extensions with their early players because they think they're leaving $200 million on the table.
Yeah, $15 million in 2029. I mean, this guy could be the best player in the game at that point.
So at that point, it might look great. And the Red Sox are big boys. Like they should be doing things like this. There shouldn't exist a baseball in which the Red Sox are the penny pinching operation. It makes sense. You have a good player, you believe in him, you can lock him up for a long time. This kind of stuff does also move the needle with your fans. It's not the only reason you should make that decision, but I understand why we've gravitated toward this extending younger players. And I think that there's an injury component to this too. Like we usually kind of want to wait till a player's free agency, but Machado, Harper got there fast and early, and they got to free agency at 25. I think we're making a bet now that players can be just as impactful at 21, 22, 23, 24, like Julio Rodríguez.
Yeah.
You know, and still with so much upside, as opposed to let's spend this money on a 27, 28, 29, 31, 32, 33-year-old.
Right.
A lot of these years that we're talking about he's going to be in his early 30s when he's out of this deal, for example. So I think we've shifted a little bit to be more believing in that mid-range. Before we used to push for guys' peaks to be 25 to 28. I think what we're seeing now is like a push for that to be 22 to 26.
Yeah.
Youth, athleticism, explosion, seeing guys like Cam Smith, guys make the transition right over from college into the big leagues. We didn't used to see that as much. We're in this era of a younger, more athletic, more explosive player, and I think that that's the correct direction. I think a lot of guys burn a lot of time in AAA, like a lot of athletic time. Your athletic prime years being spent in AA and AAA. It doesn't make as much sense if you can get them readier earlier. It used to be that it took us that long to develop players to that point. There are things happening now where I think the Red Sox are doing an awesome developmental job right now. They're getting their guys there pretty quick, short amounts of time, and getting them to be impactful when they get there. So it's a new era. It's a new way of looking at baseball. I think that's just a little more of a youth movement overall.
I wonder if the Nationals were able to get Soto on this kind of deal, what that would have looked like,
Right. Yeah, it's Scott Boras, so that was never going to happen.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me is like the cliche, right or wrong, when like you saw this with Acuna, Ozzie Albies, guys like that, was like, well, these guys probably have a lot of people depending them at home. They're international players.
For sure.
These are Americans between Anthony and Campbell.
Yeah,
these are American guys doing this. So it's like the trend is different than maybe what it was presented early on.
But the truth is the same, right? The truth is the same, that like $5 million to your family right now.
Yeah.
And the guarantee, I think it's also interesting, like the guarantee, if you have a contract that says you have $130 million guaranteed to you, what can't you access with a bank?
Right.
You have guaranteed money coming. So you have like immediate collateral or immediate value to kind of change the trajectory of your family financially. And with Acuna and Albies, same thing. Latin American dynamics are a little bit different, but you're going to tell me that $20 million to your family now at this point couldn't significantly alter. Like, what if that's the difference between your sister having 3 more kids instead of, you're going to struggle it out? You never know. Like, I'm giving a wild example, but the point is the context of when they make that decision also matters. And I'm a fan. Like, why would they have to wait till 27, 28, 29 when so many things could go wrong if you have the ability to extend? Now, the other side to that is that works in the benefit of the team. And that's the Scott Boras example, which is correct as well. It has its own merits that, like, yeah, but you're leaving $100 million in upside on the table that guys that wait it out, like Soto, he gets benefited. Like, he benefits from that. So there's that side of it too. But that doesn't mean that this is a poor economic decision, because what if that money alters his life right now and his family's life? And it likely can and will, and it does for a lot of kids in Latin America. I have a lot of buddies of mine that are going to be like, can't believe that I'm arguing on the side of early extensions, right? More on the agency side of things. But I think that there's also an emotional family, does this change everybody's life for a long time? Generations of Anthonys are now altered. And I think that that's good stuff, man. So I can't knock a player for ensuring the security of his future, like his family's, like multiple generations of his family.
And look, you can make decisions with a clear mind, right? You're not thinking about a contract, whether it's injury decisions, just things that you have to.
The injury one is a big one.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting injured can impact your ability to earn. That's just a reality of baseball. Like, and so you need to preserve health at the right times. You also need to have a good year. The year you need to have a good year. If Juan Soto doesn't have a good year in his free agency and his walk year, he doesn't command that. He's like more of a value, a bounce back kind of trajectory. So you also need to it puts a lot of pressure on you always being good to play it all the way out into free agency. So I totally understand the hedge against that, as well as if you're a player's representation and your player that you helped shepherd to this point is now, you can actualize on $130 million, $230 million value point for that person. Those guys deserve credit too for getting to an extension, an agreement that everybody's happy with. And it's not an insignificant amount of money.
No, it could be more, which is interesting. You got a lot of incentives that are related to voting. You're talking about MVP awards, All-Stars, Rookie of the Year. So if I'm Roman Anthony, I'm being very nice to the media, right? You're really kind of, it's interesting to have something that is not, I don't say it's not real, but it's not like objective, that is determining so much of your financial future. So that's That's a unique aspect of this contract. I mean, it's another 100 million potential incentives. It's not like based on hard numbers, batting titles, things like that. It's all voted, from what I can see, voted awards.
Yeah, and I think that it depends. How much do you believe in yourself, right? That you can actualize a lot of that stuff. I think putting it toward a more subjective, awards-driven performance bonus or PB structure, that to me it can cut both ways for the team too. Because what are you going to not want him to win the MVP so that you don't pay him the extra? No, you want him to win the MVP. So it's
maybe not the same promotional campaign. Maybe you're not sending the same stuff to the.
Right. I think if he's performing at that level, everybody's happy. And I think the important thing is to make yourself a destination where players want to sign long-term extensions with your organization. I think that's what stands out here with the Red Sox. Yes, it's some history, but also a player has watched himself develop inside that system, has watched what the big leagues is like with the Red Sox, and is giving his stamp of approval to the Red Sox as a place where I want to spend. And he says that. He's like, this is where I want to spend the next 8-9 years. And that, to me, more teams should operate with that in mind, because a lot of extensions don't happen because that player doesn't see himself. I don't want to be here for 7 or 8 years. Doesn't matter how much you pay me. And that's true in a lot of cases as well. So shout out to the Red Sox for being a place that players want to be extended for long periods of time. I think that's another, and cash is always king. You show up with $130 million, it's going to go a little easier, but there's other factors at play here, in my opinion.
A lot of Roman Anthony jerseys going off the shelf right now, knowing you're going to have him long-term. Different kind of journey with this next player, different side of the plate, just a whole different path, which is Andrew Vaughn, right? So Andrew Vaughn, acquired by the Brewers, 23-4 since he joined the team. Since he was acquired by the Brewers, when we're recording this on Monday, 15 runs, 7 home runs, 28 RBI, 348 average, 1041 OPS, 186 WRC plus. So this has been obviously a up and down journey for Andrew Vaughn. Still has a negative WAR on the season, even after this tear, just to show you kind of how much he struggled early on. But someone with the change of scenery, going from basically worst to first, really, really changes the trajectory, at least of his season. So this is someone you're familiar with. You were familiar with the Marlins, right? When he was coming out. So
saw him as an amateur.
Right hitter, not a lot of defensive value. I remember when he came out, it was a little bit controversial. There was debates about that profile, as great as hitter he was. You saw the same thing the next year with Torkelson. Came out with a pretty similar, if I recall, very similar kind of story, similar debate. So what can you tell me about Vaughn in particular and just this profile as an evaluator?
I think it makes sense. The demand, the thresholds that you have to hit as a right, quote unquote, undersized corner player. And the corner was generous at the time. When you're thinking corner, you still fascinate. You can still dream on third base. I was watching Andrew Vaughn as a third baseman. And that would be stretching it in terms of what he would have been defensively. The moment you shift out to first base or left field or DH, that threshold goes up even higher to how much you have to really, really hit with slug. You can't just be like a pure bat tool at those very offensively weighted positions. And so it's less about, is this guy good enough? It's more about you have to be so good to be good in this profile, in this pocket, that's a high threshold. But he was the best hitter in college in that season. I think he was the best right-handed hitter for sure. And I remember him specifically. I saw him at Cal versus Torkelson. Torkelson wasn't in his draft year. He was in his pre-draft year, but you knew he was going to be good. He was a beast. He put one over the scoreboard. Hunter Bishop was also playing in that game. It was Arizona State versus Cal at Cal. Cold as hell. Corey Lee was also behind the plate, who would end up going to the big leagues as well. Dusty Baker's son was playing second base that game. But I was there to see Andrew Vaughn because at the time, I was helping add layers of evaluation to the players we might be thinking about with the number 4 overall pick.
It's like a cross-checker kind of.
Yeah, there were cross-checkers as well. I was more of a front office person that was also scouting. And so be like, hey, if we got to pick guys for everybody to see, it's the guys stacked at the top of the draft. Vaughn was one of those guys, and that was a good matchup against Arizona State. And So I was there as a part of like layering that on. And to me, it wasn't my, it wasn't the sexiest pick for me because I understood the thresholds of how much you actually have to hit to make this worth it here.
And not Aaron Judge frame.
And not Aaron Judge's frame. That's where Torkelson is different for me. Torkelson that's a physical, like you got up on him, like it just wasn't the same physical projection. But, and this is where a good friend of mine, Dan Greenlee, was also in a lot of those rooms and saw this player, loved Andrew Vaughn because under the hood, there was a lot of really good, attractive hitterish qualities, high contact rate, high impact, good swing decisions, like just a really sturdy, solid hitter. Whether it's at left field or whether it's at first base, it doesn't matter. It's a good offensive player. And then he backed it up with performance in a good league. Performance-wise, I don't have it in front of me here, but his college numbers were stupid, right? Like he was the best offensive player in college. Torkelson was also as well. And a guy by the name of Hunter Bishop was also in the mix for this pick, which I loved Hunter Bishop. That was one of the misses in terms of, I thought he was electric. Left-handed sweet, left-handed swing, projectable, played center field, can run, and just had that sweet lefty swing with explosion. Hunter Bishop is not in the big leagues, right? Hunter Bishop's trajectory has been not this and not Andrew Vaughn. So I leaned more even in that direction. We would end up selecting JJ Bleday, who was, fighting it out in his own major league journey. Ups, downs. It's hard. It's hard to stick as a position player. And I think we saw that with Andrew Vaughn. His first foray into the big leagues and through pro ball, he wasn't setting the world on fire. He showed some offensive flashes, but not where you would have hoped by selecting him number 3 overall in front of guys who, Riley Green or other guys, CJ Abrams. They're guys that were still there that you felt more conviction in this. But I remember if Andrew Vaughn would have gotten to pick 4, he would have been selected by the Miami Marlins. He didn't get there. And so JJ Bleday was presented. Like we were very excited about JJ Bleday as well. I'm still excited about JJ Bleday. I still think there's a long major league career that could come out of this, whether or not it's at the top of the elite player scale, but guys like Corey Dickerson, like there are other ways to make a living in Major League Baseball by not being a top 10 player in WAR.
Let me ask you, let me know if I'm getting too inside on the Marlins, but at this point, I didn't know that it was going to be Vaughn if he was there and then Bleday. At that point, you kind of locked in like you've been getting so many athletes. Maybe the hit tool is the question, either through acquisition, through trade or draft or whatever it was. Was there a conscious, hey, we're going to get a proven college hitter that we feel good about the hit tool?
I don't think it was ever, that mandate never seemed like super clear to me that there was a mandate that we're going to go this way because we've done something different. I think at that point in the draft, you're taking who's the best available player that's going to be an impact player for the Marlins for a long time. And at that point in time, that decision was made in the direction of JJ Bleday, which was supported, overall. And you felt like you were getting both. You felt like you were getting an explosive, electric, exciting player that had just performed at a high level for the national champion level Vanderbilt baseball program. So there's a lot for you to feel good about, and you felt like there was upside. It wasn't just you're getting what's happening now. But you're also weighing that up against CJ Abrams, a high-risk high school player that with a high hit contact rate, but you have questions about the power. And so philosophically, I don't ever remember it being like, no, we've done this for this amount of time. We need to do this now. I think it helped that Bleday was also a national champion, like polished college hitter, left-handed that you could see plugging and playing into your lineup in 2 to 3 years. I think it was more that, right? And we tried to chase Bobby Witt would have been the optimal. That's to this day, that one will hurt me the most. Like you're 2 picks away from Bobby Witt, for example, and it doesn't break that way.
Knowing you, was CJ Abrams your favorite player once Bobby Witt went off the board?
No, Hunter Bishop was my favorite. It was
Hunter Bishop.
Yeah,
okay.
I would have been wrong about that.
Yep.
I would have been so this is one of those where I'm not claiming to have been right on any of this. It's more, I thought I liked the upside of Hunter Bishop, but I'm a little more of I like the risk, the inherent risk in the player if it has electric, tremendous upside. So CJ Abrams I liked, but I also questioned the power there. And I've been wrong about that one too, because we would then try several times to acquire CJ Abrams when you'd line up with the Padres at the time. And then he would go in the Soto deal, and it would, but CJ Abrams, that was the one that name came up quite a bit in the room. And it's the one that, watching this play out, 5 years down the road, you're like, okay, that one is the one where you could have made, I thought that might have been the most 1-for-1, not 1-for-1, but just what are you deciding with and against? And Riley Green, for whatever reason, had that's like the high school risk that you didn't have. You just didn't like him as much to put him in that tier at that moment. And I remember Riley Green came to the workout. He came to the Miami workout, but he didn't work out. Right? It was like he was there. If I'm remembering that correctly. I remember Nasim Nunez very clearly. He had a really good workout. But the draft is interesting. The top of the draft is, I'd still bet that JJ Bleday is going to hit at some point in his career.
And he's played center field. I mean, he's in the big leagues, obviously. On Vaughn, and before we get to the resurgence, the scouting part of it's interesting to me. The right-handers that have had a ton of success, regardless of what position they play, a lot of athleticism, either they're big or they're pretty twitchy for the most part, not all. This is a guy you look at, just, again, I'm not doing a visual scout, but just looking at maybe the baseball savant. Bat speeds in the lower percentile, the arm strength, the speed, these are all in the lower percentiles. So do you think that was part of the concerns with him, or maybe the early struggles, just not being like an overwhelming physical specimen? Was that part of the early struggles, or do you think it was just he went to the White Sox, it was kind of a down situation?
No, I think it's immediately if you don't slug immediately at that position that you play in a major league lineup, you can't justify being on that roster for very long. So it's like, I go back to the thresholds. How much offensively DH, first base, left field, right field demand out of you? And if you don't do that, it's the immediate place where your general manager, your front office is like, hey, this is where we got to get offense. We have to get offense out of these positions. If we don't get it here, and you don't have Bobby Witt doing it at short, or Tatis doing it in right, like if you don't have Julio Rodríguez doing it in center, short of having those guys, those offensive positions have to produce offense. And that threshold is very high. In the big leagues, he's not an elite swing decision maker right now, right? His chase percentage, it's in the bottom third of the league, right? So he's got a little bit of chase in there, got some on base, but swing decision connection, right? But right now, what I think is really important is that a player can have a burst of a good stretch when you need it the most, what he's doing for Milwaukee right now, that can be more valuable than a total season of production that's pretty good. He's really good right now for the Brewers at this very crucial, important time. You can create some value doing things that way too. You can look at Giancarlo Stanton's a bad example, but he could not play the whole season, show up in the postseason, do what he does, and it's all forgiven, man. You showed up when we needed you the most, and he's showing up for the Brewers right now when they need him the most.
You've been a part of, just in your executive career or front office career, let's say, some of the great vibe teams with the Red Sox. Obviously, they won a lot, and just looking at it, I mean, I think 2013 you were
all
there,
vibes,
right? So, and then you
flip brothers,
and then you flip to some of the Marlins teams where you knew you were rebuilding, you knew it was going to be rough. Some guys maybe weren't happy at the time, and you were in that transition before getting them out of there. This guy going from Chicago to the Brewers, who are really outperforming what you'd expect them to do, and really rolling. How much of that do you think has to do with his personal increase in performance?
You get a shot of adrenaline in the second half of a new player that's all of a sudden impacting you day to day. Yeah, that can alter clubhouse.
But for his perspective, from him as a player, going from that environment to this environment,
losing sucks. Nobody will tell you. I can tell you part of being on exciting teams, and I can tell you the other side, which is part of a team that's out of it, and is out of it. I've lived that with the Red Sox. I've lived that with the Marlins. That sucks for everybody involved. You feel like shit every night that you're losing a baseball game when you try that hard to win a baseball game. And you compound that over, you got to do this 81 more games in the second half. That's why I don't love trading away from your team at the deadline, because you still have 26 players and a staff of 20 people that all have to be pulling in the same direction. And during a losing season, And during a historically bad season, like some of the ones the White Sox are having, there's no way that isn't a huge shot of adrenaline to, like, now you're in it, in the hunt in Milwaukee. That gets pretty electric. They pack the house. That region cares about baseball. They're in the hunt. This guy's got to feel like a new man in this whole setup. So in that direction for sure, but also the team receiving him is like getting somebody that's been let out of a bit of a jail. You know, it's like it's been rough in Chicago for a myriad of reasons. So it's kind of the opposite of what this guy Miguel Vargas went through, going from the Dodgers to the White Sox at this point. And that's a whole different journey. He's started to establish himself over there, but playing for bad teams is tough. It is really tough, and it could really affect you emotionally like it affected me. Being a front office member on a losing 100-loss season is brutal if you're living pitch-to-pitch, game-to-game with that team. And imagine for a player, imagine for a staff member who's traveling and living, sees his kids for 3 months out of the year, and then the other 9 months he's going to Milwaukee, going to Arizona, going to Seattle, going to this. A lot of people put in a lot of really quality time and effort and genuine, like, leave it all out there for losing efforts. And that compounded over that many games is tough.
You talk about like trade deadline ads and just additions in general, Vaughn. Also, really Brandon Woodruff, right? You kind of add him, familiar player, but somebody who is new to this particular team that's rolling. Where do you see the Brewers? And we'll do a full deep dive, I'm sure, down the road. We've talked about them before, but with that jolt of adrenaline, some of these guys that they've added on top of just the good vibes they had, they brought up, obviously I call him the Miz. I'm going to try to pronounce his name, but one of the most electric arms in the game, just what they've got coming in and the direction they're going. Can they ride this all the way to a World Series appearance?
The arrival of a young ace who depends, like, what are they going to do with his innings? What are you going to do? You're going to let him throw the most innings he's ever thrown as your highest upside asset? Or are you going to control his innings? I watched this happen with Yuri Perez. It didn't break the right way. You pulled him out. No playoff contention for you. You've maxed out your innings limits. But now your best pitcher is not available to you in the postseason run. And then he gets hurt the next year anyway. We haven't figured out. Like, that's not a knock on them. Like, I thought you're trying to be conservative with your highest value asset. But we don't have injuries figured out. Like, so I think you only trap windows for being there in certain pockets of times. And right now, the Cubs are really good too. The NL Central used to be a little weaker, and the Cardinals dominated for a long time. It's kind of up for grabs. So if they let Mizorowski pitch, now you have an ace. Now you have an electric young arm. But how will they utilize him? Will they let him max out all his inning limits and blow past the projections? I don't know. I'd have to look a little further at how they're going to continue to utilize him. But the Brewers are 99% chance to make the playoffs, 81% chance to win the division based on the Fangraphs projections. So next 2 months will tell you a lot. I know it's like a package thing that I could say for everything, but you need to get through these next 2 months. And having injection of players from the outside when you're trying to sprint to the finish line helps. Vaughn helps. Woodruff helps. Mizorowski is like making the best trade deadline acquisition. It's an internal promotion, internal graduation, but that's tricky because he's young, super skinny. Like, you're not going to run this, he's not going to be throwing 7 or 8 innings every start from here on out, but you may need him to do that in order to beat these other teams in the postseason. So really interesting test case of how to handle a young ace throughout this rest of the back end of the season. Because to this day, I feel if we face the Phillies in 2023 with Yuri, the way he was throwing, like Yuri Luzardo, and Sandy gets hurt, you have a preserved Sandy at that point, it's a different series. It's a different matchup on that day. Maybe they still win. They were very good anyway. The Phillies were that year. But my point is those guys show up, like the importance of those guys shows up in the postseason big time. And in the dog days of September, they're probably going to make it anyway, but this push is important.
And
So-
not a team that lives with these opportunities, right?
Nope.
And this is a window. They haven't dominated as much as you would think for their record. I mean,
Right.
you look at it and you kind of wonder how they get to this point, how they get this good. it's kind of one of those magic seasons. So we'll see where it goes. We'll finish off here. We're going to talk Bo Bichette on a future episode. I want to talk about your favorite player on the planet, which is Teruaki Sato.
Yes.
Hit his 30th home run of the year. Sorry, 31 on the year. Next closest guy is 16. We're getting to Babe Ruth territory where he's doubling up number 2. And this is not.
We were on this one early in the year.
Oh, you saw the swing once, the Japanese cargo. And I mean,
This guy's a beast.
This is not a Mickey Mouse league. We at this point, I think we know how serious some of these guys could be.
Look at this swing. It's just a sweet lefty swing with extension. He's got 31 homers. The next closest guy has 16.
Look at that crowd.
He is balling, and it's got a sweet swing.
Do we get any clarity on his posting situation? Because
I did not. I like, it's like he's playing in Japan until I know he's coming, and I don't. It doesn't do me any good to project the scouting from here on out. I don't know. He seems like he's going to make a lot of money in the United States when it's time to. It's just a swing that works, man.
It definitely fast twitch.
And his advanced metrics, the WRC plus, he like laps the field. And Japan's really good right now. Japanese baseball, high quality baseball. I was looking at it too. Like there's another guy. We got to talk about Livan Moinelo at some point. We will. Livan Moinelo is a Cuban pitcher who I always watched on the international circuit. And he leads the ERA of his league in Japan as a pitcher, but he did the different Cuban route. You know, I remember Yulieski Gurriel went to Japan. Alfredo Despaigne went to Japan. Like some of these Cuban players go straight to Japan. And Moinelo never did the American stopover. He went straight to Japan. And he's one of the better pitchers in the MPB.
How old is he?
Let's see. Livan Moinelo. I remember seeing him in all sorts of international competition. Loose left-hander, a little bit undersized, like 6 foot left-hander, 5'10". From Pinar del Rio, Cuba, but his numbers
they hit 29, so he's still got juice.
Pitched in Cuba for 121 strikeouts and 119 innings, 1.28 ERA for SoftBank Hawks. Nick Martinez played for the SoftBank Hawks. But anyway, this is because we're a global baseball show. I want to talk about Teruaki Sato, but I talk about him a lot. I want to bring him up at every episode just to show that I want the world to see that other baseball elsewhere is very good too. If Ohtani can come in here and blow up, then that's the league Ohtani cut his teeth in.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I don't know if we'll see Moinelo because of the Cuban situation. It's just a little trickier. It's a more loaded, complicated situation. But the NPB is, we talk about that a lot too. The NPB is a very, very good, high competitive baseball league right now. So Teruaki Sato, World Baseball Classic, I think will feature Teruaki Sato in the middle of the Japanese lineup. So we were on it.
Can't wait to see that one before the world finds out what he's all about. Again, tune into the show, like and subscribe. We're talking international, domestic, amateur scouting, you name it. We'll break it down here on El Big League Show. Adrian Lorenzo, take care, like and subscribe to the show. Be good.
Sheesh. Sheesh. Sheesh.